Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, we're going to be checking out this bad boy right here. Now, what is this, Stuart, and why are you so excited? Well, this is the Atom V2 from Rotor X, and I have just been dying to get my hands on one of these bad boys, and I have had such a blast. I've probably put through close to 40 batteries on this thing, 40 to 50 batteries in the week that I have had it, and I absolutely love it. So what we're going to do, we're going to stick it on the bench, we're going to tear it down, look at all its internals, look at the power cube, the OSD, the VTX, the motors, the whole 9 yards. We're going to be checking out everything and giving it a thrashing as well so you guys can see what it's all about. Anyway, I'm rambling, let's stick it on the bench and get started. Alright, so here it is right here, and you might be saying, so Stuart, what is the Atom V2? Well, it's a 3-inch racer that is designed to be flown anywhere. So this thing, its motto, Rotor X's motto is, I think it's something like the world is your racetrack, but pretty much this thing is designed to be flown anywhere, and you can have a ton of FPV fun with this bad boy right here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take off this TBS Triumph antenna right here because it comes with one of these, but that'll let us see it a little bit better, and we'll talk about the antennas in a little bit in detail as well. Now, I guess a rough overview of this bad boy right here. This is the evolution of what started out as something like this. So this is the Atom V1, which I built and I absolutely love. I don't go a single place without this bad boy. But now flying this thing is a total game changer. So this is sort of the next level up from this. All right, so what's inside? Well, just a quick overview. We've got a carbon fiber frame, and we're going to talk about all these things in detail. We're rocking some Rotor X motors. We have a very special Team Black Sheep power cube inside that's been specifically worked on for the Atom. And then we've got all our FPV options inside. So we've got our VTX and our OSD and also our FPV camera. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it up so you guys can see what it looks like inside, and then we'll talk about the parts. Very, very easy to open up actually. There's just 2 screws in the top and then 2 at the front. Alrighty, so I'm just going to put those screws to the side, and then you've also got this 1 screw here at the back which holds your antenna or your pigtail in place. And that's it, we're ready to take off the canopy and we can see inside. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see this. Alrighty, so I've got my canopy just here. You can see here I've got all my components very neatly stacked inside. Alright, and it's probably worth noting this canopy just here, as well as being very strong and going to protect your components, something I think is fantastic, they actually come in a range of colours, which is going to be great. Now I think you get the black one when you order one of these, excuse me, and you get 1 random one. So I think that's really cool. It kind of reminds me of like some old school basketball cards when you used to open up with your friends and see who got what. There's a bit of a mystery in here. So I think that is really, really cool. So your canopies come, you get 2 of them, but one of them is a random color. All right, so you can see everything is crammed in here very, very snug. There is not too much room at all. Now, something I must note just here, I've put in my own receiver right here. So this is a D-pinned D4R2, but depending if you get the bind and fly or the DIY kit or just pretty much the ready to fly, depending on what you get, this little receiver might be different in yours. So that's just something you need to be aware of. I'm going to take this off so we can look at the rest of the stuff in here. Alright, so here it is without the receiver. I've just taken the receiver off the top just here, and let's look at what we have. So straight off the bat, you're going to see this a very impressive cube just here. Now this is specially designed for the Atom, and this is Team Black Sheep's power cube. Now this thing is extremely badass when you check out its features, so we're going to talk about this in a lot of detail. Right here at the front we've got our FPV camera and some little FPV mounts. On the sides we've got our motors and our 3-inch props, and just at the back here we actually get a couple of different options for our antenna mounts just here as well, so that is really, really cool. Alright, now what I'm going to do, and I feel a bit sad doing this actually, I'm going to tear it down so we can look at each bit piece by piece. So the next shot, what you're going to see, you're going to see this beautiful quad right here in pieces. So let's check out what she looks like. Alright, so it's all pulled apart just here, and it is so simple how this thing goes together. So, and we'll talk about all these. So we've got our frame, our motors, our power cube right here, and you might be surprised, this is actually the pigtail, and I've disconnected this as well. We've got our camera mounts, our camera, some of the hardware, the propellers, and also our Velcro straps. So let's jump in and have a look at the frame. Okay, so I've got the frame here, and the first thing I just want to point out to people, this is actually different than the version that's going to come in the kits. This is an earlier sort of version, so so a pre-production version. But the versions that are coming out when people buy their V2s, they actually have some parts in here milled out and recessed, so your motor wires can run along in here. So it's actually a lot nicer, a little bit lighter, and also has some great places for your wires to run. So it's a bit of a nicer, cleaner build, even more so than this one. Now, looking at this, one of the first things I do notice is it is a little bit thicker than the V1. So just the profiles right there, they look very, very similar, but there are some significant changes. So the first one, this just here, so the V1 was about 2.5 millimeters thick, and if you look at the V2 frame, it's coming in at 3 millimeters, so a little bit thicker, and that's because this one has been designed to run 1306 motors. So because those are a little bit heavier, there's a little bit more force on the arms in a crash, this thing, that little bit of extra thickness is going to mean that it does not break. Now, this frame's designed to run 1306 motors, but it can still run the smaller 1105 motors. So if you get the junior style of the frame, you're going to get these smaller motors right here, and the Pro version is going to be running the 1306. Pretty much, I think this is going to have a sort of a much more indoor, more docile sort of feel if you're using this smaller motor. Still plenty of power, but if you're rocking the 1306, this thing is an absolute rocket, and I'm going to show you that at the end, but this thing has amazing speed. At the front, you'll notice some different cutouts, and that's because it houses the FPV camera a little bit differently right here, because there was no real room to do that just here, but on the Atom, it's got some fantastic camera mounts, and of course, you've just got some little places for your Velcro straps right here. But overall, very, very similar to the V1 version of the frame, just a little bit thicker with some different cutouts around the front. And I guess you've just got to take note that in the final version of the frame, you are going to have some little sort of recessed parts in here that have been milled out for your wires to run in. I just want to point out too, on the bottom here, I've got these sort of little Velcro-y rubberized feet just here, and that's for my battery to strap onto. You're going to have to put that on yourself. These ones came pre-installed on mine, and I didn't want to peel them off in case they lost their stickiness. So that's just something to note for people out there. You're going to have to put these on yourself, but they come with the Atom anyway. Alright, now next up we have our motors, and I spoke a little bit about these when it came to the frame. So this frame's designed to run two types of motors, so your 1306s or your 1105s, and they offer very different flight characteristics. So this is all about power and punch outs and absolute insane speed, and going on the little smaller 1105s, you're probably going to have a slightly more docile quad, but you're probably going to get some longer flight times and much more suited to an indoor flyer. Now, these motors have different ways of attaching the propellers, and that's a very important thing that we talk about as well, because I've got some Rotor X propellers right here, and they do come in different colors. So at the moment in front of me, I've got some white, green, and I guess I'm just going to call this one black, even though it's slightly transparent. But it mounts differently depending on what mode you have. So the 1306s, they actually have a more traditional 5mm lock nut in the middle that actually just screws down on here. So that's one way of mounting that. And it's worth noting too that these come in either counterclockwise or clockwise sort of threads just here, so your reverse or standard sort of threads depending on which motor you're going to be putting where on your craft. So that's just something to be aware of. But if you're jumping over to the 1105s, now these can run a range of the Atom props out here, the T-style. This has a T-style sort of mount, and what that simply means is that your prop is going to screw down, and then you have two, instead of one large lock nut on the top, you just screw two into the side just here. Now, I've flown with quite a range of motors on my builds, and I've got to say, after flying with these 1306s just here, these might be my favorite motors ever. They have so much thrust when combined with these props just here. It is absolutely insane. So a definite winning combination between these motors and these props. They work extremely well together. Alrighty, so the next thing we're going to look at is the FPV camera. So this is a CMOS camera, and it is a 600 TVL, so there should be a very, very small latency between what you actually see and what is happening in the real world, so that is fantastic. And it's worth noting too, I've got some little FPV mounts just here. These are what came printed with my V2, but when you guys get yours, it's actually going to be injection molded. And these little mounts right here, they come in 15, 25, and 45 degrees. So I've actually got one just here that I have glued into place. So that one's not going to be going anywhere, so it's going to be very secure when it's inside the Atom. Now, CMOS cameras are not my favorite cameras. I actually do prefer the CCD sort of cameras, and I think they have a much better dynamic range, but I've found no issues so far, and I've probably put close to 40 to 50 batteries through this thing in a week. I've found not too many issues at all with this camera, so I think this is a very good quality camera. Alright, and then I guess on the other end of that FPV setup is the VTX and the antennas. Now I'm going to talk about the antennas a little bit more here because I do want to talk about the Power Cube in detail and talk about it all at once. But I just want to show you this right here. So we've got this here, and this is a little standard sort of pigtail. And what that does here, I just want to point out too that this is RP SMA, so a bit different to the standard Fat Sharks. A lot of people fly SMA, so this is an RP SMA, and that's just going to connect right here like this. This is how easy it is to attach the pigtail to the VTX. So there is this tiny little tab just here on the VTX, which is the bottom sort of plate of the Power Cube, and we're just going to click that on just like that. There we go. So that is my pigtail attached, and then this is where I would screw in, and it comes with a TBS Triumph antenna. Now, from all the reviews online that I've read, and I've got to agree with them, these things give fantastic range and a very, very clear signal. Plus, they are nearly unbreakable. So that is a big, big plus when it comes to an FPV antenna, because this thing's going very fast, and I plan to crash mine an awful lot. But these antennas hold up very, very well. But check this out, something I really, really love. These atoms are designed to be so small and have such a small form factor. We can actually take this off, and this is the first quadcopter I've seen with this, and it comes with one of these whip antennas. Now, a lot of people don't like these, but I gotta say, I'm getting some impressive range out of this thing just here, and look at the weight difference between these two. So I've got my scales right here that I'm turning on. Let's have a look. Rightio. So I've got my scales just here. So my whip antenna, or actually that's not even registering. So that is less than 1 gram, and if I put my TBS Triumph on, that is 14 grams. So this is less than 1 gram. So you are removing 14 grams from a tiny, tiny quadcopter. So I am actually going to be rocking this little whip antenna just here. So I'm going to just click that on, and that is how easy it is to install it. But if you are going to change this over, make sure you have this on securely, because the last thing you want is this thing popping off just here and burning out your VTX. So it's very important that that's on there securely, but I think this is fantastic that they include this little whip, a big, big plus. I can't wait to be flying around with this, especially when you lose all that weight of a traditional antenna. Alrighty, and now I know I've been holding out on you guys, but this is probably the most impressive part in the Atom, and this is this tiny little Power Cube right here. And just off the bat, I'm going to say, if I could, I am so impressed with what is right here. I would replace this with I would replace every single one of my quads with one of these if I could. If I had these lying around, I would put them in every single one of my quads, because I think they were absolutely fantastic. The way it all works together, I think Team Black Sheep and Rotor X have done an amazing job at making something pretty much so feature-packed and fantastic in such a tiny little product. I absolutely love it. So what do we have here? Well, on the top we've got, and we'll talk about all these in detail, on the top we've got our flight controller. In this middle stack just here, this is where our 4-in-1 ESCs are running, and then on the bottom we have our OSD and our VTX. So let's start at the bottom and talk about our VTX, and we'll work our way up to the flight controller. Now the reason this VTX and OSD combo is so special is because it actually gives you a few options in the OSD when you're setting up the quad itself on how to change its channels. So you can go into the OSD and you can select things like what power it's going to be, what band it's going to be on, what channel, a whole bunch of different options on your VTX straight from your radio. So no longer do you need to fiddle with dip switches or put in a different VTX if you're going to races or push some buttons or anything like that. The whole thing can be configured straight from your radio when you're looking in, I guess, when you boot your quad on. So I really, really love that addition, and I think it makes setting up things for like races, or if no matter where you're going, it is super easy to set up. Now in the middle here we have our 4-in-1 ESCs, and these ESCs run the latest version of Multi-Flight, which is great. That's why you hear the Imperial March every time you boot it on. I've been singing that song an awful lot actually. And I think they're rated for a just 12 amp continuous and a 14 amp burst, which is fine because we're running such little motors anyway. You're probably not going to be going over that. Alright, in the ESCs they have these little tabs just here. So this is for motors 1, these 3 just here, this is motors 3, and then on the front side we've got motor 2 and also motor 4, so a very easy way of connecting up your ESCs. And then on the top, we have our fantastic flight controller. And the beauty of this thing is it comes all pre-tuned, pre-configured, and ready to go. So you don't need to mess around with anything. You pretty much just need to put this inside your frame and it's ready to rock and roll. Or if you just buy the sort of pre-made kit, you are ready to go out and start flying straight away. Now this F3 flight controller, F3 is a great choice for sort of the speed of a flight controller in this day and age. And it's also running, I don't know what version of Betaflight that you guys are going to get, but I know that this is running version 2.8.1, so it's up and running with the latest Betaflight. On the front, just here, you've got a couple of different options, but the main one that these Atoms are going to use just here. This is for your receiver. So now you can either plug something in, like I've got just here, I have a little crossfire link, so you can just slide that in straight to just here. Or if you're not using a TBS crossfire, what you can do, you can D-pin a D4R2, depending on the version that you get, and you can solder it straight up to these little pads just behind. So you've got your signal, your positive, and your ground are straight behind there. So both of these ports are the same depending on how you want to hook them up. Now I don't know how to pronounce this, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. It is called the Colibri Race Flight Controller. I keep going to say Khaleesi, but maybe I'll just have to call it the Khaleesi, but the Colibri F3 Flight Controller. On the side just here, you can see you've got your normal USB mount, and that's great if you want to plug it into CleanFlight and update the firmware or any of those good bits. But what I've found actually is, because you can do so much on the OSD here, I actually don't plug it into the computer as much as I thought I would. But overall, I do just want to recap again just how impressive this is. For its size, this does so much. Look, I've built quite a few quads in my day, and I have never been more impressed with anything than I have with this little stack right here in my hand. So this thing is absolutely fantastic. I know I keep saying it, but it is literally some of the best hardware I have ever seen. Alrighty, so let's just power it on just here, and then we can check out the OSD. We get the Imperial March. Alrighty, so I'm just going to sit my screen over here so I can... Alright, now to enter the OSD, all you have to do is hold left on your yaw, and you can see it starts the countdown, 3, 2, 1, and now we're into our OSD. So it's super easy to enter and change some things around. So on here, let's have a look at some of our options. We've got on-screen display, we've got some things to control our flight controller, our video transmitter, and also our camera. So let's start from the top and have a look at our on-screen display. So we've got units, RSSI, battery, some general, your artificial horizon, and your call sign. I'm going to start at the bottom. And all this is, you can choose when you display your call sign and what it is. Now mine is UAVfutures, so you would have seen that. So whenever I turn this on and I'm flying around, you'll see UAVfutures in the bottom left hand corner. Going up, the artificial horizon. A lot of people like this, and let's turn it on just here. All this is so when you're flying around, you can see what the horizon actually, where it would be in relation to your craft. So if I turn that on, it's very easy. All you have to go over to select the option, and then it's either up or down. So what have we got? Just basic. There we go. So if I went back to my quad, it would show me the artificial horizon. I'm going to turn that off because I actually don't like flying with an artificial horizon. Alright, just in the general, just here we have all these options. I don't need to go through each one of these because some of these are not relevant, like show position and heading. They're not relevant to the Atom. You can change the OSD color, I guess, from white, and I know that's white to black. We've got some warning times and the OSD type, and if you need to reset that, you can just go down and reset that cube right here. Now I'm not going to do that because I don't do that. Let's have a look at our battery. Alright, now in our battery, what we have just here, we have a couple of options, and this is where to set up your low voltage alarms and correct them if you need to sort of adjust them or anything like that. Going back, we can have a look at our RSSI, so that's just got to do with your signal strength on your radio and your units. That's where you can change things from imperial to metric. For some of you who don't use meters or kilometers and like miles and that sort of strange shenanigans right there. Now just here, this is where we can change some of our settings on our flight controller, and I absolutely love this feature. So you can adjust your PIDs straight from the radio itself in field. So no longer do you need to bring a radio to tune this bad boy. So you can change all your PIDs, so pitch, roll, and yaw right there. If you want to change your rates, you can also change your rates and adjust some, I think, what have we got? Oh yeah, you can adjust your TPAs and a whole bunch of things that you usually have to do in CleanFlight, but it's fantastic that we can adjust all these things right here on the quad, and so easily as well. In our settings, here you've just got the option if you want your motors to spin up when you arm or not. So I guess that's like motor stop. And then here you've got some options in here for the filters. Now I'm not 100% sure what this menu does, so I'm sure if some of you guys out there do know, can you please leave that in the comments down below. So that is what you can change in your flight controller. Alright, now this is one of my favourite features, and this is the options it comes with your VTX. No longer do you have to fiddle around with little dip switches or anything like that. You can do a whole bunch of things in here. So once you unlock your VTX, you can change not only what band and what channel it is on, but also the power level. So let's have a look at that right here. Excuse me, I'm going to go down. Here we go, so our power level. So in Australia, we've got to fly on 25 milliwatts. That's what's legal in Australia. But what you can do, you also have the option, now I'm not going to enable these, but you can fly at 800 milliwatts, 500, 200, or 25. So there is a ton of options there. And you might be thinking, Stuart, why is that useful? Well, if you're out flying a lot of races around the world, or if it's also legal, make you fly at 25 milliwatts. But what you could also do, excuse me, I'm losing but what you could also do, say you were flying and you wanted to put it at 800 if you're flying somewhere with a lot of dense bush and you're not flying around anyone else. So 800 milliwatts is going to give you a lot of penetration, but it might also bleed over into any other pilots near you. So it's nice to have the options just there. I guess going down 500, what do we got? And 200 is probably the norm. I find that a really good mix of flying around, and then 25. Now just here, this VTX LED strip, I'm not 100% sure where the LEDs are on this bad boy, so we'll have to check that out, but I guess you do have the option to enable that if you need to. So something I really do like, you can see what the channel is on currently and what the new setup will be. So you can see just there, I've got 57, so what mine is now is it's currently at 5820, but you can see what my new setting would be. So it's very handy to be able to see what your channel is going to be before you change it over, because it can be a little bit difficult to try and track down your channel again. So there we go, I'm going to leave mine on 5. Right, and then very easily to exit the OSD, all you have to do is press left on the roll axis just here. So there we go, and we are back. Now look, I know I keep raving about this thing, but I just want to stress to people just how amazing this thing is. Now I've built quite a few quads in my time and dealt with a lot of OSDs, ESCs, and different types of flight controllers, and this is everything in one pretty much amazing tiny little package, and it is pretty much the best OSD I have ever seen. So this Team Black Sheep and Rotor X have done a fantastic job at putting everything in here. I wish these were on every single one of my crafts. Alrighty, so there it is, I guess the complete teardown and everything that's in this fantastic little thing right here. But let's look at some things, or at least some questions I have. And I've had to think really hard about some things that I would do or improve on this quad. So there's actually a couple of things, and these are in no specific order, and I actually emailed the guys. So one of the things I didn't really like, and maybe this is just a bit of OCD-ness in me, if you put the pigtail in the back here and you happen to be using the TBS Triumph instead of the whip antenna, with the pigtail, it comes with this little screw just here. This is sort of like a silver screw. Everything else looks so good using these black screws just here. I guess just on the color scheme of the thing, it'd be great if this little bolt was black as well. But I think that actually might be, that's just silver because this is a pre-production version. But I think in the final version, they are actually coming out with black bolts in the back. And speaking of the little antenna at the back, this was another point that I just wanted to sort of clarify. And apparently this might be in the works of getting fixed, or not fixed, but at least a little addition. Currently it is RP SMA, this antenna right here for the TBS Triumph, because that's RP SMA as well. But I think there might be something in the works where you might be able to get an SMA adapter if you want to use your own antenna as well. So I think that's pretty cool, but that was definitely one thing that I wanted to check up on. Now, something I actually thought would be a good inclusion, but I've changed my mind on it after putting close to 50 batteries through this thing, is wherever the USB is. I think it's on this side, the USB for the flight controller. I used to think it would be nice if there was a little cutout in here, but you know what? This thing pretty much comes ready to fly, and you can adjust all your PIDs and rates on the radio anyway. So because this is so, like, it just works straight out of the box, I actually don't think you need to have access to the USB, because you hardly ever need to take it off. The only reason I can see myself taking it off is if I want to just update the firmware, and it's so easy anyway, because all I've got to do is undo 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I actually don't think it needs a little window. So I started off and I thought, gee, it'd be nice to have a little window for USB access, but I actually don't think it needs that anymore because it works just so well straight out of the box. Now, one of the limitations of this craft is its ability to carry a camera, or specifically a GoPro. So I've been flying around like this, and I'm actually amazed at just how much power it has. It's still been thrashing around with this little Yomi G on the top, but that's just secured down with some double-sided tape. Well, it used to be. It's not very sticky anymore. But that was a little bit difficult for me to capture the flight footage. You can see actually the significant difference that it has right there. So if you're planning, I don't really recommend this thing if you want to carry a GoPro. But in saying that, I've heard fantastic things about Rotor X designing a special camera that records in 1080p that sticks on the top and will be very low profile and extremely lightweight. But if I did have one of those cameras, I would be sticking this on here all the time, and I think this would become then my main filming quad. It's just so agile and easy to fly around. I love it. And then I guess this brings me to the final thing I think I would like to see, and I'm not sure if this is in the works or not, but I would love to see some sort of LED configuration on the back here, a configurable LED, so when you're flying around and versing your mates, because I really picture this thing, this is what you want to fly around when you're racing your mates, get a bunch of these together and sort of chasing and doing some FPV fun. But that's going to be so much better if you can tell who's in front of you. So if you could change the LEDs, if there was LEDs on the back and you could change them like red, green, blue, whatever color that you wanted, I think that would be fantastic. And you could also match it to your canopy as well. So that would be brilliant. That is probably what I would like to see if there was some more revisions or some add-ons on this frame. If there were some little LEDs that would come on here, just one or two really bright ones in the back that people could see when they were chasing their quads around. So you could see just who you were overtaking or who was overtaking you. So there it is, there's my review of Rotor X's Atom V2, and I've got to say, hands down, this is the best quad I have ever flown. I was trying to explain this to one of my mates before, and I pretty much said to them, if I could choose between having all of these quads or just this one, I feel like this thing is so good, I would just pick this one right here. So this is hands down the best quad, the best flying experience I have ever had. And what I really like about this is that it lets everybody get involved in the races. Like, I can just see this being perfect for a bunch of people who want to get together. They all fire up their own atoms. They've all got their different color canopies on, and you go out and you just have a race anywhere. And that's totally what Rotor X is all about, just letting people enjoy FPV and having fun. And really, that's the message I want to share as well, is just giving the gift of FPV to anyone out there. But this thing absolutely kills it. It has so much performance. Honestly, it flies so well out of the box. You take it out, it is tuned perfectly, and it has so much power there. It is so impressive. This thing, I would say, could be faster than some of my first 4S quads that I built. This thing is an absolute rocket. And like I've shown some people this one when they're out, other pilots, and they are absolutely amazed at how fast this little bad boy can be. So well done, big props to Rotor X. You have made what I think is the best, pretty much just the best quad available. Not even the best ready to fly. This is the best quad that I have anyway. And as you can see, I built quite a few. Subscribe for more FPV related content. I think the DIY kit for this is shipping at the end of July, and I'll have a build guide for that as well, because I've turned it down and I've shown people how to put it together. It's super simple. It only took about half an hour actually to build this bad boy. Subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying! Alrighty, so here's some flight footage, and I had to think about what sort of footage I wanted to put in here because I had so many clips that I'd recorded, but I actually thought it might be nice for you guys. This is my first ever flight, so this is its maiden right here. Just when I was testing, this is how it was straight out of the box, just testing it and seeing how it goes. And it's probably worth noting as well, this thing, although not designed to carry a GoPro, this is actually carrying a GoPro at the moment, it still handles it fine, and when you take it off, it is an absolute rocket without the GoPro. So if you think this thing is fast now, you should wait till you fly it without the recording camera. And I just want to give a big shout out too to the boys over at Rotor X. So thanks very much, boys, and Trappy over at Team Black Sheep. You guys have been so supportive. And to all the people who've been supporting the channel on YouTube and Patreon, because without all the help that you guys have been giving me, I wouldn't be able to do the videos like this. So thanks very much. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling, and I'll just let you guys enjoy the flight footage. Happy flying!